We're used to showing you the incredible exploits of the world's greatest shooters here on Impossible Shots, but this time it's a little bit different. A few months back, we got an email from an old World War II veteran named Ted Gundy, who lives in tiny Memphis, Missouri. Now, Ted wasn't after anything more than an answer to his question: how in the world is it possible for Army snipers to hit their targets from so far away? Much farther away, he wrote, than when he was a sniper himself. Well, rather than simply send Ted a friendly response, we decided to send him to Fort Benning, Georgia, to find out for himself. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for an old sniper to try a modern-day impossible shot. And it was also an opportunity to honor an American hero. For Ted Gundy and the rest of the greatest generation, as they've been called, this is the way it was.
It's been too long ago. I need to bring back old memories.
The barracks.
I slept about, third or fourth bank from the end bunk.
The mess hall.
I never did leave anything on my plate in.
Even the latrine.
Yeah, bring back old memories. Long time ago.
World War II Company Street at the National Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia, is a painstakingly accurate recreation of the conditions young recruits lived in. For Ted Gundy, who was 19 and fresh out of high school when he joined the Army in 1944, boot camp is his last innocent memory before being shipped across the Atlantic. It wouldn't be long before he'd experience the horrors of war.
And we went a little farther and a machine gun shot at us. The machine gun had moved across the road and had us pinned down. And then that's when the artillery barrage come in, and it lit back in the second and third squad right behind us. And I looked down and blood was coming out my leg, and a medic came and gave me a shot, and I asked him where the rest of the boys were at. He said they're all dead.
Ted Gundy is 84 now. He's visiting Fort Benning this week as a distinguished guest of the Army he once served. While he's here, he'll inspire the next generation of soldiers.
Salute you, boys.
Be treated to VIP tours.
Going into Belgium and Holland.
Be honored in ways that will test his emotions.
Congratulations, sir.
You don't know how much that means to me.
And ultimately, this old sniper will get the chance to try an impossible shot of his own from 1,000 yards, coached by the best sniper team on earth.
I can't hardly talk. I'm so excited. Really excited. This is something that I never dreamed in my life that this would ever happen.
That was especially true 65 years ago, as he fought for his country and to stay alive. Not long after arriving in Europe, Ted and his squad were thrust into a fierce firefight. History remembers it as the Battle of the Bulge.
The Battle of the Bulge was the largest battle the United States Army ever fought.
It's the winter of 1944. The German army is beaten up and quickly losing ground. But as the Allies continue their advance toward the German homeland, Adolf Hitler decides to launch a final, desperate offensive.
For the most part, it was a complete surprise to frontline Allied units when the Germans finally led into them.
That's because Hitler had waited for the winter weather to reach its worst.
The Germans knew the Allies had air superiority. They waited for a storm, a snowstorm, to attack because they knew that the Allies wouldn't have air cover.
On the ground, the situation might have been even worse.
Yeah, it was cold. It's cold. I guess the coldest winter they ever had over there.
The Americans are not prepared for winter warfare. They don't have the proper shoes. They don't have the proper overcoats. They don't have the proper blankets.
But I thought that night when I laid down to go to sleep that I wouldn't be here the next day. It was that cold, I figured.
Hitler's strategy has worked. The Allies are scrambling and suffering heavy losses.
At one point, they were in such need of fighters. They got cooks. They got truck drivers. They started handing them weapons, and they said, go fight.
Among those arriving on the front lines is a yet-to-be battle-tested Ted Gundy.
Well, he was, I think, more worried what we was going to do fighting, you know, because we hadn't been in that combat, and I guess it hadn't entered mind when we was in training that we was going to get shot at, you know.
But it doesn't take long for the German offensive to waver. Hitler has gambled on the weather keeping the Allied planes grounded.
And then the skies cleared.
Suddenly, the Allies are able to use their vast superiority from the air to retake control of the battle. By mid-January, almost 6 weeks after the first shots were fired, the Germans are beaten. Casualties are more than 80,000 per side. It's a great American victory. But sadly, for Ted Gundy and his unit, the glow of glory will soon fade, replaced by a darkness that's still there more than 6 decades later. Ted Gundy was an Army sniper when he finally made it into battle that cold winter of 1944. But it wasn't his experience as a marksman that he relied upon when he and his squad quickly came under an artillery barrage.
And I wrote my dad, told him, I said, I've dug some dirt, but I've dug this one faster than I ever dug anything else. And when you get shelling, you get right at the job, you know. When you hear a shell coming in, get on the ground and get as flat as you can get.
But 2 weeks after the Battle of the Bulge, while on patrol in Germany, no amount of digging would have helped.
I never did hear the next one that hit me. It just felt like someone give you a big kick in the leg.
That was the last time Ted Gundy would see a battlefield. The lower part of his right leg was shredded. Had it not been for his friend Charles Jones, he might not have survived.
I knew it was bleeding bad, but I didn't know the artery was cut. And Jones had crawled down next to Sergeant for some reason, I don't know why. And I hollered at him to come and put a tourniquet on my leg, and he come up, I forget what we used for a tourniquet now. I think maybe a bootlacer out of one of my boots. And tightened it up, and then the medic come and gave me a shot, and I asked him where the rest of the boys were at. He said, they're all dead. I just got skin and bone, don't have any muscle in it.
Ted Gundy was one of the lucky ones, though he'd lose his right leg just below the knee. Jones would survive the war as well, and the two would remain close friends until Jones's death in 2009.
I can't believe how hard that was for each. Now, you can't believe how hard you miss somebody.
I saw my left leg and it was banged up a little bit, and I looked down and could see my right leg was still attached. It was just kind of slumped over, and I reached down and just felt a big hole where my thigh should be.
Back at Fort Benning, Ted Gundy has found someone he can relate to.
Got a leg above the knee. And
Sergeant Josh Olson's story is eerily similar to Ted's. In fact, it seems the only thing they don't have in common is their age.
I got hurt in an ambush in the town of Tel Afar. It was in northern Iraq.
Sergeant Olson was part of a 4-vehicle patrol.
I was in the lead vehicle, and the first RPG hit the back of my Humvee. We got out, returned fire. About 90 seconds later, a second rocket was fired.
In that split second, everything changed for Sergeant Josh Olson.
I got knocked down. At first, I thought I just got shot in the body armor, and I just thought the wind got knocked out of me. So I tried to kind of stand up and walk it off, kind of like I did in football. And for some reason, my leg wasn't working. I didn't know why.
Much like Ted Gundy almost 60 years before him, the artery in Sergeant Olson's leg had been severed. Saving the leg wasn't an option, and living a full life was now up to him.
The very first time I ever put a prosthetic on was when I realized that it kind of really sank in, and was like, okay, well now I have to rely on, you know, this titanium, this aluminum, that this is how I'm going to be able to get around for the rest of my life.
6 years later, Sergeant Olson couldn't be doing better. He stayed in the Army, and today competes in international rifle for the elite Army marksmanship unit. Meeting Ted Gundy only helps.
It makes me feel good knowing that, you know, you're as seasoned as you are, and you still walk around on a prosthetic. That gives me hope, because there's some days I don't want to wear mine, and I'm like, can I do this for the rest of my life? And
if you're doing everything that you know you possibly can do, that's it. Doing 100%, but you can't do it quite as good as guys with both legs. Sometimes you can do it better too.
Theirs are a pair of lives on parallel planes, separated only by the eras they served in and sacrificed for.
They called you guys the greatest generation. They call my generation the next greatest generation.
Yeah.
That's big shoes to fill. Hope we're doing a good enough job.
You're doing a good job, and then you're doing what we did, what we had to do, and you're doing what we were going to have to do. Yep. I think he can outrun me.
Since 1944. That's what World War II veteran Ted Gundy is finding out as he continues his tour of Fort Benning, Georgia on this very special edition of Impossible Shots.
Ted Gundy was once in their boots.